The late Alex Haley, the author of Roots, lived his life by these 6 words: find the good and praise it. Today we praise the American tradition of transferring or reaffirming immense power in the inauguration of the President of the United States. We do this in a peaceful, orderly way. There is no mob, no coup, no insurrection. This is a moment when millions stop and watch. A moment most of us always will remember. It is a moment that is our most conspicuous and enduring symbol of the American democracy. How remarkable that this has survived for so long in such a complex country when so much power is at stake. This freedom to vote for our leaders and the restraint to respect the results.
There's only one word you need to change in that to make it true.
What?
Where he said how remarkable it is that this has survived for so long in such a complex country.
How disturbing.
Change complex to corrupt.
Yeah.
And that's what's remarkable. I mean, it is remarkable when he talks about no coups. I mean, it's pretty subtle. I don't know if I'm reading too much into that, but he says no coup, no insurrection, no mob.
Well, he's talking about what he's afraid of. I mean, what they're afraid of is an insurrection.
Such a thing might happen, yeah.
Yeah, and they may also be kind of like suggesting it in a certain sense. I mean, you have to look at the government from. You got to take off the movie glasses when you look at the government, because people get their experience of how the government works from watching like Jason Bourne and all of these different movies about like the CIA, and they're kind of all powerful with. Then they kind of look like they make themselves out to be all powerful, but it's a complete fantasy. All right, they're not that. They're not cohesive. It's not that there's a big giant conspiracy in the government. They don't all get together and meet, except in Congress, but then they don't agree on anything. They don't get together in some back room, all of them together. They're not all in on it. You know, they're all out for their own personal self-interest. And there's groups of money men who come in, these lobbyists that come in that kind of steer them in the right direction by leading them on with, you know, promises of prostitutes and cash. And that is what gets things done in politics today. I mean, so these guys, so when we talk about like the government wants this or the government wants that, you got to take that with the understanding of one part of the government probably wants that, another part does not, you know? And like I say in the article, that the reason they pass gun legislation laws, the reason why they pass any laws actually, because they're psychopaths. They don't want to protect people. The reason they do it is to protect themselves from each other, because they know that they come together in kind of packs every once in a while. They get together and group together for mutual benefit, mutual rapaciousness. But they're always afraid that one of them is going to turn on them. And what they're really afraid throughout history is what's been shown in every single revolution is a government becomes complacent, and then they start to abuse even their own kind, even their own psychopaths in power, because they're just not the right kind of psychopath for them. Their fixation is, you know, they want to go off and molest little children. Well, these guys just want to like rape the environment, you know, so they have a war. Oh, we're going to have a war. And they do it in the back rooms with, like, if you ever see a politician getting accused of sexual misconduct, financial misconduct, or suicide, then you know that was an inner conflict among the psychopaths, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, if they couldn't get them on sex, if they couldn't get them on sex, or they couldn't get them on money, then they just, you know, got him to suicide. They suicided him out, right? They always try the first one because it's the easiest, because people, like, with the whole Bill Clinton thing, you know, all these people were like, he lied in court. I said, yeah, he lied about getting a blowjob. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm not really seeing the impeachable offense here. Of all the evil things that Bill Clinton did, his entire, you know, administration, of all the crap, all the bombing, all the stupid laws that he passed into.
That appeals to a lot of puritanical Americans as a crime.
Yeah, but that's not a crime. You know, like I say, I can forgive any sin except greed. And when you see that in people, that's an interfaction outcome. You know, this, you know, like when they did it to Traficant, and I always loved Traficant. Beam me up! I love that guy. You know, he was a senator or a representative or something. Anyway, and they got him on taking campaign bribes. And then he said, as they were about to kick him out, he said, "But you guys all do it too." you know, as they're taking them out. You know, when you see that, that's what it is. And then what happens is when the government, the faction that is in charge gets so entrenched that even the peripheral psychopaths, because they're a perfect mirror of any society, they have minorities even within themselves, can't get in and get their yayas, right? And the people, of course, are naturally being abused left, right, and center because that's what psychopaths do. They can't help it. You know, they get put in charge of an economy. They're going to run it into the ground. They get put in charge of a military. They're going to go out and create atrocities. It's just their way. So the people get really pissed. And then the psychopathic elite on the fringe says, damn it, we want to be the ones, you know, raping and pillaging here. So what they do is they see that people are ready to rebel, and then they start funneling them weapons. And a couple of them step down, and they turn. I defend the people, and I've always believed in whatever it is that you believe in. You know, I mean, they almost practically say that. Whatever you guys believe in, I believe in it too. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, this charismatic leader comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, they raise the people up, get them in open rebellion. I mean, this is the Russian Revolution. This is the Chinese Revolution. All the same. You know, all the French Revolution for certain. You just look at what happens right after the revolution, and then you can tell who was behind it, you know?
Yeah. So on that note, then, that's obviously something that would repeat itself in the eventuality of a U.S. revolution, because we've had a couple of callers saying
people don't learn from history. They don't learn from history, you know? I mean, because, running a revolution is a really tough job, to be quite honest. I mean, if you don't have money and access to guns and you aren't a bit psychopathic about it, it's very difficult for a natural people's rebellion to raise them. I think it's possible for sure. I just think that it takes too long, and one of these opportunistic, pathological people come in, take it, steer it off course because it serves their purpose, you know. And people don't learn about this. I don't know if there's an easy way out of it, you know. I mean,
well, this has been my beef. Not a big beef, but it's a beef nonetheless with a lot of people in their response to this gun control phony debate, because it's based on the false premise. Their response is, well, it's for the eventuality of rising up against a tyrannical government. And they specify, we live in such a time right now. That's great. They can see that. Cool.
Okay, cool.
So they get most worked up right now when it comes to their guns being taken away. But over the last 10 years, especially since 9/11, everything has been stripped one by one by one. I mean, George Bush and the illegal wiretapping, they just made it legal. Instead, it was never, we're going to deal with this. Torture. Obama's like, oh yeah, I'll come in and we'll sort this out. Still torturing people. And it's accepted.
Yep.
Where is the revolutionary spirit when it comes to all the other inalienable rights, inviolable rights, which have been violated left, right, and center?
Well, that just shows that people are not really prepared or ready for whatever reason, and you know, there's probably some obvious reasons why they're not ready for a revolution. I mean, the situation has been controlled. I mean, if there's one thing, if there is a government, and maybe even a secret government or whatever you want to call it in the US, that's kind of controlling, that they're engaged in population control. If there's one thing that they're concerned about, that they're going to put a lot of their energy into, it's making sure that a rabble, a mob, does not rise up
against them
and kick them out. I mean, that surely that would be something, if they have any planning ability at all, they would be. I mean, and if they have any self-reflective ability to realize, listen, we're doing some pretty nasty stuff here. We're enriching ourselves. We're passing all sorts of corrupt laws, etc., and these are directly impacting in a very negative way a lot of people. What about if those people? What if those people kind of figure that out? Do we want to take any kind of action to, you know, head that off at the pass? How should we deal with this situation? You know, and you know, obviously we can get into like all the techniques or the ideas of how populations are controlled and
yeah. Well, another thing I'm asking myself is, in terms of revolution in the U.S., late 2011 and into 2012, there was a pretty widespread, and I was surprised by how widespread it was, protest movement across major cities all over the country and the world. It spread. I mean, this is the Occupy Wall Street movement I'm talking about. Of course, it went way beyond Wall Street, but I'm glad they called it that because they recognized core, at least the symbolic core of social injustice is in the financial system, money.
Wealth.
Well, you have this protest movement, and practically overnight, they did have to go in a few times, but there was one night in particular, I think it was sometime around April 2012, where the Obama administration, they must have coordinated, because police units all over the country went in simultaneously and booted everyone out of there.
People have no guile in the world. You know, they really are very naive. You got to understand that the police spend a lot of time and we spend a lot of money training them to do exactly what they did, which is, I mean, they have radios, they have communication, they have huge databases. We help to build them up. We help to teach them how to use it. They record every single thing that they do and share it with the next generation of police officers. They do this every day. You don't deal with the police every day. They deal with the types of people that you are, which is those people who are doing what the government doesn't like, whether it's crime or whether it's protesting. So yes, obviously the police did this. I mean, you saw the same kind of, I mean, it wasn't quite as bad as, you remember Dr. Zhivago, where the people did that peaceful demonstration and all their signs said was freedom and bread, you know?
Yeah.
And they're marching down the street and they march and they get down into this place where it's like a bottleneck for the group.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of police cavalry there with swords, and they just go and cut them all down. And this, I think this is a fairly good representation of what was happening at the time in Russia. And here we have the same kind of idea happening in the U.S. of a bunch of people who thinking that, oh, we can just protest and no one's going to do anything about it. And this was the police and the government's way of saying, no, you can't.
Right.
And now, you know, but because people are guileless, they have no cunning and artifice, you know, they don't think that someone would want to stop them from being reasonable because they don't think that unreasonable people exist. But the government is populated by unreasonable pathocrats, by unreasonable psychopaths. That's just the way that it works. And those people are filled to the brim with guile. They are cunning, and
one of the cunning ways that they get police officers who might otherwise be, you know, at least conflicted about whether or not they should beat the heads of ordinary people who are just protesting for what could be construed as legitimate.
Some of them were.
Yeah, some of them were. But one of the things that they do, and they do it repeatedly, every time there's a demonstration anywhere, a major demonstration anywhere in Western civilization or in Western countries, is that they have covert protesters, basically. You know, the black bloc, basically policemen or people hired by the police or policemen themselves who go in dressed as protesters, go in and wreak havoc around the place, and therefore all the rest of the police say, well, look, we're dealing with a kind of, at least an element among these protesters that are just basically, they're just hooligans, they're just violent hooligans.
There's a term from way back in the Union days, and we have actually in our library, there is a book from the early 1900s, and it says the title of it is The Agent Provocateurs.
Yeah, Agent Provocateurs.
Within the union movement, you know, and this is how they were, you know, getting union protests and strikes, being able to bust them up was by sending agent provocateurs into their midst to start doing something illegal. And that's essentially their first strategy.
Yeah, you can turn the police against the legitimate protesters who aren't doing anything wrong. You can turn the police against all the protesters by having some protesters that you hire go in and attack the police.
It's a false flag operation.
Police are, in essence. And it's the first thing they think of.
Right.
In terms of dealing with people trying to assert their rights and even trying to expose the truth. The first thing they do is, like you just said, it's a false flag operation. But
I'm sorry, I keep sipping my tea in front of the mic. I'm sorry about that. It's probably driving people nuts.
It's not. It's against internet radio etiquette.
It's against the law.
I'm going to pass a law on that one.
we need tea control.
Yeah,
I need more tea control.